Hi, it's me. I never recorded a proper intro to this video, but I wanted to come on here and kind of explain before Reagan and I just jump into things. So before I graduated from Andrews, I wanted to film kind of a video talking about my queer experience in Adventist education and spaces in general. I grew up Adventist. I've been in Adventist education since I was in kindergarten, and I graduated college. Thankfully, my grad school will be elsewhere. However, I have a very niche experience in that way. And I've also moved around to a lot of different conferences. So not all of this is just based in one area. I am somebody who is fully out. My family's very supportive of me. I'm very lucky in that way, especially because that's not super common in Adventist communities. But as much as I don't necessarily resonate with those beliefs and practices anymore, I do think that it is important for queer people to have a space in those places if they'd like to. And I know from personal experience that's not always easy. Because I am able to be out and open about my sexuality and, how I feel about these things, I thought, as much as I have a lot of privilege and my experiences aren't, the craziest ever, I think it's still important to talk about because I know the best kind of form of convincing, as much as it shouldn't be, is just personal stories. I had it easy in comparison to some people, and some people never have problems, which is really good. However, that wasn't necessarily my case and isn't the case for a lot of queer people, especially trans people or people of color. So I think, just discussing this more, and this is purely based on, again, my experiences within Adventist communities and all of that. This video is quite long. Reagan and I like to just kind of talk. We get on soapboxes a lot. However, I do think the overall message is important. So, if you're interested, watch it. If you're not, just listen to queer people's stories and create safe environments for people who want to be in those spaces. Because in my opinion, that's what Christianity should be about. But yeah, enjoy and happy Pride Month, everyone.
We're Lucille and Reagan.
I'm Reagan. That's Lucille.
I wanted to come on here and talk about my experience as a queer person at an Adventist university.
Yes.
And Reagan wanted to be here to support me.
Absolutely.
Oh my god.
And I'm here along with you on the journey you've been on.
Mm-hmm. It was a journey.
And I've been on, let me tell you, we go way back. If for somehow you don't know us and you don't know how far back we go, we met each other. You were 12.
Yeah.
I was 13.
No, you were 13.
I was 13. She was 12. So it has now been 9 years. Okay? 9 years. And we've been roommates now for all of college except when I was gone.
So a year and a half.
We had a
year and a half apart.
Because I was abroad and you were.
Yeah, I was at Disney for a little bit.
Because, yeah.
But now we're back together. And
Better than ever.
And she's someone who knows a lot of my life. And the same as I know a lot of your life.
Too much.
Too much
about my life. I would say every single person I've ever met since I've met Lucy has heard about Lucy.
And they always probably hear the most random stuff, too.
They probably do. They probably hear about your eczema.
So we both grew up Adventist.
So true.
I didn't grow up as Adventist, though.
Well, you had that West Coast Adventism experience,
Yeah.
which is like Adventism light, no offense.
Yeah, my parents were always, my mom didn't grow up Adventist. My mom grew up in downtown LA. They were like Easter Christians, because her mom was Catholic, sort of, not really. And then when she was 18, she moved in with her aunt, and they were Adventist, and that's when she found the church. And then she also found my dad, and they got married like right after. But he's like a third, fourth, even maybe generational Adventist. But they've never been super conservative. Like, that was never their vibe, because my mom chose the parts of Adventism she liked and disregarded the other parts. Mm. However, we both have the experience of going to Adventist schools our entire life, including our college life, which is like a very niche experience.
Yeah. I was homeschooled for a little bit before.
And she did go to public school for like a year.
That's true. What were yours in public?
Third grade?
Yes. Yes.
But
yeah, her dad.
My dad did work at my school for most of the time, and it was pretty chill. I honestly really did like him working there, and I had a good time.
Yeah.
And then I moved here, which was across the country from my family at the time. Well, still now. They've moved, but it's still across the country.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Anyways.
I told you I'm here to be supportive. Like, tell your stories.
I knew from a very young age that I liked women, but I wasn't, like, out to my family. But I had coped with, like, the whole, like, God loves me. Like, there was no, like, God doesn't like gay people, because that narrative never made sense. Like, I was 12, and I was like, what? Like, I thought that for 2 hours, I was like, does God hate me?
2 hours?
Like,
When you're 12
like,
years
genuinely 2 hours. I found Tyler Oakley and Troye Sivan. And that's when I realized, like, oh, people can be gay. Because it started to click in my head, because my mom had these two friends that were, like, married. They would be at everything. They were my mom's, like, best work friends. Yeah. And so I think I found Tyler Oakley, and he was like, I'm gay. This is what I am. I like men. And I was like, so true. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that's what those people are. And I was like, that can be an option. That's what I am. And then I was like, does God hate me? Mm-hmm. 2 hours later, I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. Like, literally, 2 hours. When I kid you not, I think it was, like, for an hour, I was like, damn, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's really crazy. And then the next hour, I was like, that's fine. Actually, I was like, you know what? Like, that makes zero sense. Like, I was like, you know, why?
What part of it, like, that was just you didn't buy it?
I just didn't buy it, because it was, like, the whole, like, oh, he loves everybody. He loves everybody for who they are, like, whatever. Maybe I watched another Tyler Oakley video, and he was coping with this, too. And I was like, no, Tyler, you're right. But I don't remember. I think I was just, like, alone in my room, and I came to that conclusion.
You just felt like if there was a loving God,
He'd love me.
He wouldn't care about
like,
these kind of things.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me. 0 sense. I was like, it, like, made sense for an hour, and then I was like, no, I'm being crazy. Like, it doesn't make sense.
So, did you, like, self-identify to yourself as gay?
Okay, at first I was like, I like girls, and I was like, what if I like my best friend? But then a couple minutes later, I was like, no, I don't like my best friend. No, but I do think I like girls. And then it was, like, I was doing a lot of, like, and then I was like, does God hate me? And I was like, no, he doesn't hate me. I figured all of my stuff out within 2 hours. Which
That's
just
really good for you.
Describes the kind of person I am. I move on quickly.
She's quite time efficient, really time effective.
I get into it, and then I get out of it.
She might be, do you know when one person, like, you're on resumes, how everybody says, time management is my strength.
I took 2 hours to figure it out, and I figured it out.
It's the one person it's true for. She's one of the most efficient people I've ever met in my life.
And then I just, like, kind of ignored it for a while, because there was 2 people in my class. Like, there was nothing I was going to do. Like, and also I'm 11, 12 at the time.
You were 11 and 12.
Like, I'm not, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So it's not something I, like, had thought about until later in high school, when I started to have a crush on this girl. But she was never going to know that, because she was not a lot older than me. But at the time, she felt a lot older than me.
Yeah.
And so, but we kind of became close during a really, like, hard time in my life.
Yeah.
But it's just because, like, I had a crush on her.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'll be there for you. It's like,
thanks, babe.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here for me. And anyways, nothing ever happened with that.
But it was like, was that another affirmation to you?
Yeah, that was another affirmation. Well, that's when I had started to, like, tell friends. Because I had told you, I had told Christina.
But the thing is, I remember us talking about, I have a very distinct memory of when we were in high school, you talking about your attraction to women. And I remember it being like, oh, like, bisexuality, like, that's what that means. And I don't remember you necessarily taking that label onto yourself. No. And I remember you telling me you were attracted to women, but it never, like, it was just like, I remember you telling me that. And here's the thing, I was also very religious in high school. And I struggled with, you know, what I had heard about God and religion.
She didn't have the 2 hours I had when I was 12.
No, I did not.
She was lacking.
It was really, like, eating me up, right? And I knew people who had kind of come out to me, kind of assuming I was an accepting person, even though I hadn't necessarily come to the conclusion yet if I was an affirming person. But them coming out to me, and I was like, damn, like, they're some of the best people I know. Like, the kindest, most, in this case, the person who'd come out to me not you.
Yeah, no, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Was very devout and very religious. And I was like, dang, like no way they're going to hell. There's no way you could question their closeness with God. And I started to really challenge this narrative I had been hearing that being gay was basically just like a mental illness, or it was something akin to like you stray from God, the gayness gets to you. That's kind of a natural consequence of straying from God is sexual perversion. And that included, from what I'd heard, homosexuality. And when I met this person and they came out to me, it just really shook me. I was like, maybe that's not true. And also, maybe sexuality is complicated. Like, yeah. And I had heard more stories of people and the kind of their experiences. And I was like, wow, sexuality is really complicated. And it's hard to blame anyone for it. So even though I hadn't really come to a conclusion about how I felt about it and how to make sense of it within religion, I felt very strongly like people can't help it. And it's not something people could be shamed for. And it's complicated too. Like, sexuality is not simple. It's not as simple as like you're mentally ill or you're away from God. Like, that's not how it works. And so when you had told me you were attracted to women, I was like, yeah, that's fine. I remember feeling like, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah. It didn't seem to me that like the Bible and religion in general, the main message was like about God's love in my perspective. So like being gay was like not the worst thing you could be. I think being a homophobic jerk is in many ways,
and we knew a lot of those.
And we knew a lot of homophobic jerks.
That was a common theme in our high school experience.
Yes. A lot of the boys in our class were very homophobic. They would make a lot of homophobic jokes. And even though, like I said, like I wasn't really settled, I remember I felt like an obligation.
She would defend.
Yeah. To basically argue with people in class a lot of the time when they would say something homophobic. Like, do you remember that one time in Dr. Zern's class?
Oh, yeah.
We were in this class, and this is crazy. The boys were crazy. We were in English class, and there was a photo of our teachers. I don't remember. Son. Yeah. But I guess, like, they were wearing, like... No, actually, the thing is, it wasn't her son. It was actually her daughter, and she was wearing a bow, but I think it was like a blue bow, or it was giving like, I guess it wasn't too gender specific to the people.
Because this is a baby, so it looked like they had put a blue bow on a baby boy.
Yeah, so that's what they thought.
But it was just her daughter and a blue bow.
Anyhow.
So, not that would have mattered either way, but it mattered to them.
It did. And they were kind of like, and they're like, bro, I hope that's not your son. Is that your son? Like, why you put a bow in his hair? And she's like, that's my daughter. But they were already set off. It's like, yeah, that'd be like so gay. That'd be so gay. Like, you want your kid to be gay? And I was like, that's not how that works. Yeah. And I was like, that's not how that works. And we went back and forth a long time. And they were like, well, like, if I had a son, like, I'd just beat the gay out of them. Like, I would beat the gay out of them.
Crazy homophobic things. Like, crazy homophobic things. Like, full-on abusive.
Yeah.
It just got worse from there.
They were, like, in class fantasizing out loud about having a gay son so they could beat the gay out of him. And I was like, what is wrong with you sickos? Like, seriously. And then I'm like, don't you think that's, like, a horrible thing to say? And then they start bringing religion up. And I'm like, you're just fantasizing about child abuse. And now you're like, well, but the word of God. The word of God? Are you hearing yourself? Also, the most religiously undevout men I've ever met in my life.
The genuinely worst.
Genuinely worst. Okay? And so, I'm hearing them. So I'm going back and forth. And again, like, that person who had come out to me was in that classroom.
And I remember that too. And I remember, like, this was not even stuff that I was taking personally. Because, again, this narrative never, like, hit home for me. But I remember thinking about the other people in the room who I knew were, like, also gay, and thinking about them and being so infuriated, not because of myself, but because I'm watching these other people who are seeing the justification of, like, God and gayness and all these things and just be, like, completely terrorized by these boys who are terrible people.
Yeah, and not only that, but our teacher, the authority figure in the room, saying nothing. like really not doing anything to shut down this rhetoric or to argue with them, to try to change the narrative, like literally nothing, okay? And so I'm going full blue hair liberal, you know what I mean? I'm going really, I'm being quite woke about it, I suppose. And I'm arguing them back and forth. And this is true. Once I start arguing about sexual purity, I go, sexual purity? You're going to argue sexual purity? I know as soon as you get out of this room, you're going to go back to the dorm and jerk off to Pornhub. And all of a sudden...
The teacher gets... By the way, the teacher's in the room for the entire thing, not saying anything. Not a word.
And then all of a sudden, she's like, Reagan, that's too... You can't say that! Everybody sit down!
It was the craziest thing I've ever experienced. And I think that was so, like... I think it's really good that we had that person in our high school that, like, came out to certain people.
Yeah.
Because I think, not that they ever had to do that, or that they ever, like, you know, that they shouldn't have had to do that. Mm-hmm. But I think it did teach a lot of people who were ultra-religious, who are also ultra-religious, to be like, you know, gay people have souls, which is so...
Gay people are people?
crazy to say, but also at the same time, like, the most that they were introduced to gay people were kind of, like, completely non-religious, like, very easy to be like, oh, these blah, 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 blah people, like, do this, or they're like that, like, feeding, like, I don't know, they were very, like, into the stereotypes, versus this person was very much breaking those stereotypes in that way, which is not something they needed to do, they were just existing, but it did help, I think, form a lot of people's views in a more positive sense, so. And
I often think about that, because I think about, you know, I don't think they were thinking about how brave necessarily they were being, but, like, genuinely, this is, like, an example of when you live your truth,
like,
it inspires other people.
Yeah.
Like, it really does. It really does. And I know, I like, it inspires people. And so I very positively remember them, and I very positively think about them, because I think their bravery to start a journey of accepting themselves and, you know, trying to make sense of that with their religion was really hard.
Especially at that age and in that environment.
And in that environment.
It's like we're like 15. Yeah. In a very hostile environment.
Yeah. And they really persevered.
Yeah.
And so I'm really proud of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I moved away to a school that was also Adventist, but on the West Coast, and I had dated this guy, and a lot of his friends were gay, and we're all still friends to this day. And I think it was very much like they were out, like, and people knew, and they had really hard, you know, it's not like they were treated any better, but it was also just somewhat, I don't know, it was a different sort of hatred than what boarding school put on them.
Yeah,
like,
those boys were crazy.
Yeah, like it was never that sort of environment, but there still was definitely a lot of homophobia.
Yeah.
So, and they definitely all have had, like, their own experiences within Adventism and within that whole acceptance of accepting themselves and their families, and some people have had supportive families, some people have not. And I think they also, like, at that time, I was considered, like, the straight one, because I was dating the one straight guy in the friend group, but I didn't, like, but then after that all ended, and after, like, it came to turn, like, everybody was like, oh, okay, like, we're all friends, we all went to high school together, it's all fun. I think that's when I was able to also just be like, okay, it's okay for me to be out now, because before it felt, like, weird for me to be like, oh, no, I like girls too, like,
this is so true,
because that just seemed, like, disrespectful. Not disrespectful, but, like, it seemed kind of like, why do I need to be doing that?
Well,
like,
that's kind of, like,
it's just...
That's by...
It's by a region, but also at the same time, it wasn't, like...
It seems like you're doing too much.
Yeah, there was no... I was like, I'm 16, I'm dating this guy, it's fine.
Like I can let his friends...
Think that I'm straight. Yeah, and it's like maybe, and I think I mentioned it once or twice. I was like, oh, actually, I do like girls too. But it wasn't like, I didn't want to ever come off as the person who's like, oh, I really like girls too. Because it just didn't seem like the time or place. But after we'd broken up, we all had a lot of conversations, and I think it was really healthy for me to have a lot of, like, gay friends who had grown up in very similar situations. Yeah. And some of them, again, with supportive families like mine, or unsupportive families, but still had similar experiences in the sense of, like, school and religion and all of that, and, like, be able to, like, also live their truth, which was really nice. But at the same time, we both started at Andrews, which that, I think, even with the homophobic boys of our, sophomore year, this was probably the most homophobic place I've ever been in.
Yeah.
I think in terms of just, like, I don't think I was, like, I think when I had gotten here, I was under the mindset of, like, I'm always a very positive and optimistic person. And when I had gotten here, and a lot of people had warned me. They were like, it's going to be pretty conservative. And I was like, okay, but there's, like, gay people in every space. Like, I found a gay person in every single space that I've been in. I found acceptance in every single space that I've been in. Not that I'm different, but I did feel a little bit like I'm different. It's not the first thing people notice about me. So, usually, people get to know me. And then if I'm the first gay person they meet, they're like, oh, interesting. And then it's kind of the whole, like, rethinking, you know, how they feel about it. And then sometimes it's a positive. Other times it's a negative, but a lot of times it's, like, not that big of a deal. Although, you know, 4 years later, realizing that should never be the cycle. Like, there should never be a situation where you're entering in and someone is unsure of whether or not you should be accepted because you like the same gender. Like, that's really awful.
It really is conditional.
Yeah, but it's something that has been so normalized. And when I was going into this experience thinking, I was like, it'll be fine. And the first year was pretty good. And then it ended pretty badly because I was in a friend group who that was kind of the situation of, like, I was friends with them and then I, like, came out to them and then they were like, okay, that's cool. And then there was another situation involving men where they were saying some very hurtful things about gay people, knowing that I was gay at the time, and just some crazy things.
Can I tell it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was not there. And I regret not being there because, you know, if I had been there. She was at dinner with a couple of our friends at the time, and you were not friends with these men.
I wasn't. But the girls were friends with the men. So it was like a girl friend group and then a boy friend group, and we'd hang out. And I was sometimes friends with some of the boys and sometimes not friends with some of the boys. It wasn't like a beef situation. It was just like, oh, like, if we're all hanging out, we'll be friendly. Yeah. But it was never like I really liked these people.
Yeah.
Because I knew that they were bad people. I knew that they weren't, like, the people that I wanted to be hanging around. But some of the girls at the time were dating some of the boys in the group. So it wasn't like I could really say anything. It was also my freshman year. I felt very, like, tied to these people. I was like, well, this is what has to, you win some, you lose some. Like, everybody has a bad boyfriend.
And that was really... It was like, it used to feel like you could ask for so little.
Yeah.
Like, it used to be like, you didn't know you had rights. Like, you didn't know that you didn't have to put up with...
This is actually not the bare minimum. Like, guys, this is like, I was really thinking that, like, I had scored. I had not
By
scored.
having someone who kind of tolerated your existence and wouldn't stand up for you in public.
Yeah.
So, basically, and you had kind of disclosed, previous to this dinner, in another kind of situation, you had disclosed that you dated women, okay, to some of these guys in kind of a social setting. And I don't think it was a planned out thing. And you said it very casually, like it was not your intention.
Yeah. It was kind of on accident.
It was kind of on accident. But you're like, oh, well, whatever. It's LOL. It's
months had happened since then. So I was like, okay, it's fine. Like, they don't actually care that much. Like,
because, like, why would they care?
Yeah.
But these men were sitting at this table, knew she was a queer woman, and then started talking about homosexuality, and would really, like, bring up the subject themselves. It was not really related to the topic, but they were really bringing it up themselves to talk about why being gay is gross, why it is against God, why is blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, again, these men are not men of God. Okay? They are not terrible. They are not reading their Bibles. They are not giving to the poor. Mm-mm. They are not abstaining from sex themselves. They are not abstaining from stimulants and depressives. Okay? They are not men of God. Their bodies were not a sanctuary. At all. And they're sitting there suddenly like they're theology majors, putting like, well, you can't disagree, it's a sin. You can't disagree, it's a sin. And
it was like they were saying things that were like, Jamaica does it right. Like, they handle gay. Like, they were saying countries that are very homophobic, and what they do to gay people was how we should do it in America. Wow. Essentially.
Wow.
Which was crazy. And then they were like, and then some of the girls were like, what? And then they were like, well, in the Bible, like, you can't disagree with the Bible, can you? And I think some of my friends were, one, in shock, and two, had never had to be put in a situation where they truly had to defend, like, gay people. Okay, so I want to give some of my friends a defense here. One, I was a lot of their first gay friends. Like, I was somebody who, and at the time, I had turned 18 in the middle of my freshman year, and I had started to go on dates with girls off of apps, and I would bring them back to the dorm, not in, like, any weird way. I just, like, be like, oh, come meet my friends. Like, I was very much, like, wanted them to be involved with my dating life, because it was like, oh, if they ever had a boy, like, we would all meet them. And especially when you're at that age, it's very much like, let's all, like, see each other. Like, it was very still,
like, come meet this person.
Yeah, come meet this person I'm going with, even though it's, like, not anything serious or something. So this was their first introduction to somebody, like, actually dating, and, like, especially a woman. And because a lot of them had also grown up Adventist, very culturally religious as well. So it just was something that was pushed in their household as, like, not okay. They're getting to college. They're realizing, you know, maybe it is okay. Maybe this is something that, like, is, like, fine. Like, was their first time, like, actually thinking about it.
They were having those thoughts, and it wasn't taking 2 hours necessarily.
Yeah, but it wasn't taking 2 hours, but it wasn't necessarily, like,
pressing.
I don't know. And I thought that we were fine. I thought that I wouldn't... Fine. I thought that we were all fine. But I think when we got to this table, and these boys were saying these things, they didn't know how to defend. And they just kind of sat there, and they're like, well, I guess. And I should have stood up. I should have left. I should have just, like, gone. But I couldn't. Like, something in me, I was like, I want to hear what's going to happen. Like, I want to know what your thoughts are. Like, I want to know. And I'm not going to sit here and defend myself. Although I did a little bit, but then I was like, I'm just tired. Like, I don't want to have to do this. And I remember leaving. I remember going to one of my other friends' rooms who weren't there. And I was like, crying. So I was like, I can't believe they think that way. I can't believe they wouldn't defend me. I can't believe, like, I just couldn't believe it. And I'm not somebody who cries in front of people a lot. And I also I wasn't as close with these other girls that I was, like, kind of opening up to about it. And they were like, I'm so sorry. Like, you should never have to feel that way. That's not how we think. Like, it's okay. And most of these people I'm not still friends with. One of the girls I am still friends with. And I think it's also because after that incident, first of all, she repeatedly apologized. She also, like, she's somebody who's very religious to this day.
And she went on a journey herself.
Yeah, and I think she hit
the books.
She hit the books. She hit the books. She got into the word. She tried to figure out her own personal belief. And it wasn't a sense of, like, it's okay, it's not okay. It was, like, she was trying to figure it out. Like, she was trying, and I
think also, like, she became familiar with the research. To the credit of our friend who hit the books, I think they became aware of the literature and psychological impacts of homophobia. And also, there's kind of this narrative in religious spaces and Adventism, the idea of praying the gay away.
Yeah.
Which, again, views being gay as if, like, you didn't pray enough.
Yeah.
Like, it's a defect. It's a spiritual, if not a physical defect, it is a spiritual defect. And that God can transform your sexual preferences. And you can heal your spirit. And that will make you not gay anymore. And I think once you see the research, which shows that does not work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Like, conversion therapy light, it does not work. People don't become, like, people cannot change those part of themselves.
It's just not something,
It's just not something you can do. And also, preaching abstinence for gay people also is not particularly effective in, again, some of the mental health struggles that people go through. So I think that, once you've become familiar with the research that talks about religiosity and homosexuality, I think you see how, I think people gain a lot more sympathy.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, a lot of people never hit the books. And they kind of keep these false ideas about homosexuality and gay people and queer people. And they just never hit the books, and they never learn.
Yeah. And
they gain no sympathy for queer people, you know?
Yeah. And I remember it being hard at the time. Yeah. Because this was one person that, like, was very apologetic. And it took time for her to, like, fully, like, not even fully realized because she was apologetic from the beginning, but I think as time went on, I remember her just, like, coming to me and apologizing randomly and crying as she would learn more, because she was like, I am so sorry. Like, I am genuinely so sorry. I can't believe that ever happened.
Like, I didn't know what you were going through.
Yeah. And if it's still something that, like, if it got brought up today, I think she'd still shed a tear.
I'm so sorry.
Because she's just so apologetic about it, and she knows and understands now the, like, nuances and all the things, which is, like, one thing that I'm, like, glad that it's, like, even though you should never have to be the trial friend, sometimes, you know, it happens, and it honestly happens for the best, because now there's one other person who's able to cope with, like, very religious ideas, and also these ideas of queerness and affirming that, and, like, kind of bring them together and understand that. And it's nice to know that, like, you know, somebody did the work and may also be able to have conversations with other people who are in that same headspace.
And I think that shows that, you know, the problem really is not religiosity when I think about the treatment of religious people, treatment towards, you know, queer people in the queer community. Mm-hmm. I think it really is closed-mindedness. I still understand there are religious people who truly don't think being gay is okay, and they really did hit the books, and, like, that really was their conclusion. But I think even people like that who could not theologically square it, I think still when they hit the books and they care to learn about it, they at least feel extremely sympathetic. I don't think that knee-jerk, ew, gross, and kind of putting down is inherent to Adventism.
No,
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
You know, going forward from that, I remember at the time, it was hard because one of my other friends, who I'm no longer close with, was, like, we just need to keep you guys in separate friend groups. Like, I'm sorry that happened, we just need to keep you in separate friend groups. And it hurt me so much because this person went on to date one of the main perpetrators of this situation. Yeah. And she'd talk to me about it and be like, blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, I can't believe you. Like, I literally can't believe that you listened to the things that he was saying, were like, I'm so sorry, and then went to go and
was like,
date
that's my
him.
man.
Yeah. And it was just, I don't know. But we're not friends anymore, and I still obviously wish her the best, and I think, you know, it was kind of a situation where whatever was going to happen was going to happen, and freshman year, you're kind of figuring everything out. So essentially, after that had whole happened, it was like a month before school was going to end, and we got out and went home for the summer, and I ended up coming out to my parents very casually.
I was on FaceTime.
I wanted to post something on Instagram for Pride, and I was like, Mom, like, just before I post this, like, I'm gay. And she was like...
I would like to again say, I was on FaceTime.
And she was like, okay, like, can we hug? Like, do you have anything else to tell me? Like, that was literally her reaction, and I was like, yeah, let's hug. I texted my dad, which, to be fair, he texted me, like, some people's deaths. So I don't think that this is, like, the craziest thing for me to come out in a text. He was golfing. It was taking too long. I wanted to post my post. Yeah. So I did.
Pride.
And,
Pride.
all my family was very supportive. A lot of my family, especially even on my dad's side, are not Adventist anymore because they have their own religious trauma. And so they're very understanding of my situation. They were very happy for me. Even my own dad, like, when we got home from it, because we were on family vacation, extended family vacation at the time. And classic. I remember going home and my dad, like, had lunch with me, and he was like, can we get breakfast? I was like, sure. So we had breakfast before we went to work because they were still in school. And it was really early. It was like 7 a.m. And he was like, I just don't understand why you didn't tell me sooner. And it was the whole thing of, like, he just felt bad because he felt that the narrative that I was putting on him was gonna be a homophobic one. Like, he just was like, I wish you would have told me before. But it wasn't something that I was ever trying to, like, hide from my parents. It just wasn't, like, it didn't feel relevant. And, but at that time, I think I was like, I need to be free. Like, I need to, I need to be free of, like, whatever's going to happen. And I talked to my parents also. They were pretty supportive because I had almost transferred at that time, too. And I was like, I don't know what I should do. Like, it's just not a great place for me. And they were like, well, if you really want to transfer, we'll look at options. But I had decided that, like, my scholarships and everything, and the degree I was working on, it just didn't make sense. Like, I should just stay, it'll be fine. But sophomore year, the first semester, I was just, like, still so, like, not anxious, but, like, why am I here? Like, I was, like, very dissatisfied with my life there. Even though I had great friends at the time, I still, like, was around people that I really loved. I was having a really good time. but it felt like I needed to, like, explore. Like, I needed to get out of the bubble. It felt like what people were saying to me and warning me about when I had originally chosen the school was coming true. And so I applied to go to Disney for a semester, and I got in, and I met
place on earth.
I met with my academic advisor every day for a week, trying to figure out a way that I could still graduate on time. It wouldn't mess up my track. I was in, like, a master's track where I would do it quickly, but it would be here. So I would still stay an extra year here. So it was, like, I was opting out. So I'd have to do, like, a different master's, which in the end, this actually worked out perfectly.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you had another year? If you had done 5-year tracks straight through and you had another year?
And I didn't do Disney. Like, I think I would be a very different person.
I agree.
But she was very supportive, even though this seemed like kind of a silly thing, because I've always been, like, a 4.0 student. I'm somebody who's, like, really focused on school. I'm self-motivated.
It was random. It was so
my
random.
parents were terrified. They were like, are you dropping out of school? Like, is it that bad? Like, you should have just transferred. Like, they were kind of terrified, but I was like, I'm not dropping out. Like, I just need to take a semester off. It's fine. Like, I'm picking up a minor. Like, it'll be fine. Like, when I get back, I'm actually going to be on my grind. Which, it worked out.
It did work out.
It actually worked out great. So I ended up...
I don't know why I was saying it like...
Yeah, come on. Because they were making fun of me when I picked it up. They were like, why are you, Haley, Jeff?
It was random. You understand? This whole thing was so random. She didn't even tell me she was applying to the Disney program.
I didn't know I was going to get in.
Well, it's just like, it was so random. Like, one day we're in the dorm, and she's like, oh my gosh, I just got accepted to Disney World. And I'm like, whoa, as what? Like, what does that mean you just got accepted? Like, what does that even mean?
I'm going to be Mickey.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, huh? And I never heard of the program that she used. The Disney college program is this thing where, like, college students can apply.
It's just cheap labor for Disney World, basically. Yeah. But you stay in these apartments, and it's basically, it felt like the most freedom at the time, even though a lot of people thought of it as less freedom, because the apartment complex, it's like you can only check people in before, like, midnight or something like that.
Compared to Andrews University,
I was living my best life.
Yeah.
So I ended up, and that was also when I came out to my academic advisor, because she was like, hey, like, why don't you want to do the master's program here? Like, it is cheaper. Like, it seems kind of, like, more sense. And I was like, well, you know,
I can't stand it here.
I was like, I'm gay. I have a hard time. Yeah. I'm having a hard time. And she was like, I totally get it. Like, it's fine. Like, we'll do this for you. So she was extremely supportive of it, even though, you know, it's kind of a crazy thing to, like, advise on, because it feels like if you didn't, like, know how I would end up, it kind of feels like you're taking a big risk. Like, you might be helping a student drop out of college on accident, which is true. A lot of people do go there and drop out of college.
Yeah.
But that wasn't what I was looking for. And so I had gone, and I spent a semester there, and it was probably one of the best things I could have done for myself.
Yeah.
Because I met people that were, it was for the first time in my life, I was more independent. Mm-hmm. Like, in the sense that, like, I lived in an apartment, I had to buy groceries, I had to do these things, which is, like, not that crazy. Like, at the age of 19, it's fine.
But you were 19, like...
but still, like, a lot of college students have to do that. Secondly, it was, like, you know, obviously I worked at Disney World. It's a very unique experience. Like, you're in this, like, not dorm, but you're in this apartment complex, and it's all other college program students. So you're basically on a college campus, and it's, like, these really cool amenities, and you're taking buses to work, and everybody has a costume on, and it's, like, it's super freaky, but I loved it so much, and I had so much fun being there, and I got to meet people who just, I would tell them my story and tell them, like, this is where I'm from, this is what we believe, and they were like, this is crazy. Like, they were like, there's no way that people believe that. So it was this whole thing of, like, I was like, you know what, you're right. Like,
it felt like the water we swim in, that we feel like it's so normal. Mm-hmm. It becomes so normal.
I was like, yeah, homophobia is, like, so normal in my culture. Like, they were like, what?
That's
like,
just, like, how people are. Like,
yeah, which is, like, obviously, when you get to the real world, there's still going to be homophobia. There's still going to be struggles. There's still going to be conservative people. But it's like the narratives that were pushed throughout my whole life in terms of school. Not my parents, but school was very, and, like, church in general, just very different than a lot of people had received. And it felt very, like, I don't know, it felt super great to go there and, like, have, even, like, it also helped me build relationships with, like, men that, like, weren't, like, weird. Like, it was never anything weird. It was just, like, we're friends, and they're like, man, I'm sorry, like, people are homophobic to you.
Yeah.
Because it's such a contrast of, like, here people were like, you're gay? Like, versus, like, there it was like, oh, you're gay, that's cool. I'm so sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah. I will say, in my experience, I don't think besides from my brothers, I had ever met a non-homophobic man in any,
just crazy.
any religious space.
But it's so, so it
Yeah.
was so, like, incredible to me, which is just like, oh, you just, like, experienced non-religious space for the first time in your life. But it was such a good experience. And I mean, aside from that, I had so many, like, wonderful friends that I met there. I had so many, just, like, it was fun. I mean, I was working at Disney World and going to Disney World, like, 3 times a week. Like, it was fun.
Hashtag lit.
And I spent, like my whole semester there, and it was the best thing I ever did. I remember coming back, and it was just, like, you know, I was like, it's okay. Like, I'm here, but it's okay. Because no matter what happens here, that's not what the rest of the world thinks. And I completely shifted my mindset from, like, oh, I need to, like, conform. I need to be, like, you know, it's okay if people are homophobic, to I don't need to hang out with people that, like, aren't gonna have the right mindset, aren't gonna, like, actually fully accept me for me.
Yeah,
I don't have
absolutely.
to exist in religious spaces if I don't want to. Like, that's an option that I have. Like, I don't need to go to church. I don't need to go to Vespers. I don't need to do these things. Because, you know, as much as I wish there was a space for queer people, a lot of times there's not. And and that, you know, it's okay to walk away. Because I'm not a person that ever really felt a strong desire to be there. So it was very freeing. Got back, I felt great. I was more comfortable dating women on campus instead of just, like, ones that not go to my school or not religiously affiliated, all of that. So I did some on-campus dating. Those did not end up too well. That first semester was very disheartening because it was, like, every time I thought, like, okay, I've made a space for me here, so much so that, like, I can date, it was like something would end. And sometimes it had nothing to do with queerness, and sometimes it did have something to do with queerness.
A lot of times it had something to do with queerness.
And a lot of these people were also staff kids, but staff kids of here. And sometimes their parents would find out, and I still to this day get some nasty looks from a couple professors, which is crazy because it's like, I dated your daughter briefly 2 years ago. And why do you have beef with me? Yeah. It never got that serious with those girls, so it was never that serious to me. Anytime I would be sad about it, it was more like what it stood for. It was more like I thought I made a space and I didn't.
And
the professors looking at me weird, that did kind of, like, get to me a little bit.
Yeah, I imagine.
But the girls, it was fine. Like, I have no beef with them. I don't hate them.
Yeah.
You know, they're on their own journeys. You know, good for you for figuring out whatever you needed to figure out.
And God with you on that journey.
Yeah. And, like, you know, I wish them the best. And I think a lot of them still have some of their queer identities, which I appreciate. I know one of them at least still does. And I think that's really good for her. And I hope that she has a very happy life.
Yeah.
Whether it's with a man, whether it's with a woman, whatever.
And I think although those relationships necessarily weren't serious, when we're talking about what they represent, like homophobia in the church.
Yeah.
And also authority figures who literally have power, like they're authority figures. They're the adults who are part of the school. They are part of leadership on this campus, and those are the attitudes they hold.
Yeah.
So it's like, what does that say about what is considered the status quo on campus and how it's okay to treat people who are queer, you know? Yeah. And I also think it's, like, it's a reminder that, like, yeah, maybe your family's accepting, but a lot of these other people aren't.
Yeah.
And so it's so hashtag sad.
Yeah.
It is.
Hey, I'm back again. I recorded this with Reagan originally, I think a little too soon after the situation had happened, and I was coming at it from, like, here are all the details. Just because I had gotten so far into the video, I just started talking. However, I don't think all the details are important for the original message, but I do think that it does kind of have some significance in the broader message of this video. Around junior year, I started seeing this girl. We were set up by a friend of mine. It was a very, like, meet cute sort of thing. Like, we knew each other, but we didn't really know each other. Like, the whole situation was very adorable, and it was just very sweet. We both, I think, instantly kind of hit it off. We were very excited about each other. We were each other's first girlfriends. I had dated people in general before. She had never dated anyone. And so it was kind of an interesting thing to navigate together, because even though I'd been in relationships before, my last one was in high school, and, you know, it wasn't with a woman, so it just was different. And, you know, added layer to that was navigating that on an Adventist campus. I am out to everyone in my life. I've been out to everyone in my life. All my friends were very, like, familiar with me, you know, dating girls, and all my parents were as well. And although my parents weren't in state at the time, they had come to visit, you know, they had met her. She was very accepted into, you know, my family dynamic. She wasn't 100% out, which was not a problem for me. I kind of saw it as like, you know, some things aren't important. You know, if the people who truly matter in your life and are going to love you and accept you for who you are, be out to them. The other ones, you don't have to. I didn't feel like I was hidden at all. Like, I felt like I was pretty, like, pushed out and accepted in her life as well, to obviously the people who felt the most important. We're about 9 months into a relationship. We had, again, like, really good time together. I saw us dating past me graduating. It was, you know, we had some time of long distance, all of that. And there was somebody who she had seen as kind of like a spiritual role model in her life for a really long time, that she, you know, felt the need to come out to. She felt that, like, this was kind of the last piece of the puzzle for her. And so she did, but she did at a time that was, you know, not all of her friends were around. I wasn't really around. It was a situation where she was triggered, and she didn't have a lot of people around to help her get out of that. So she ended up, for the first time that we had both experienced, felt that maybe she shouldn't be in a relationship with me because of God and this spiritual person in her life not reacting well to her coming out. So that was kind of a moment that was very unexpected for me. That was really hard for me to take. And, you know, I kind of just coped with it. I kind of just, you know, talked a lot to my friends, you know, just tried to navigate something that I had never been through before. Because before I had gotten into this relationship, I had always told myself, I will never date a woman who's unsure of her sexuality. And I guess I didn't fully understand that the person I was dating was still kind of struggling, because I don't think she wanted me to know that. And that's fair, because I don't think a lot of people in relationships want you to know that they're struggling with their attraction to you. And that kind of set the tone for the next, like, 3 months. It was a lot of navigating. You know, she wanted to put certain boundaries on a relationship, which, you know, to me felt kind of like a certain way to control the gayness. And I don't know, it was hard for me. It was really hard because I have never felt a connection to this homophobic idea of God. That has never been something that has spoken to me from the beginning. It just didn't make sense. I had always been under the impression that if there is a God, he's not homophobic. And this Adventist narrative, I think one reason that I was never felt like a strong tie to the Adventist church, other than, you know, my physical ties, was because of that. I just didn't believe it. And it felt like, if you're going to preach something that I am vehemently against, I don't want to be for it. But this was something that was heavily preached in her life, and she had struggled with. It was hard to, you know, be around that as somebody who was her partner, but also just seeing her struggle with that, because I had seen my close friends, some of my close friends, go through the same thing, and it was really hard in the time to kind of help them through that. To see my partner go through the same things was just like, wow. Like, there's a layer of, like, I want you to be okay as a friend standpoint. I want you to be emotionally okay with yourself and accept yourself. And there was also, like, you're dating me. Like, I don't want you to feel guilty. I don't want to feel like an experiment. I don't want to feel like I'm turning you. I don't want to feel that way. Like, I don't want to feel dirty. And I think I started to feel that way. I started to kind of, because of her religious trauma, kind of, obviously when you're in a relationship, sometimes it bleeds. And I think it was hard for me to be like the non-Christian one in that relationship, just because I didn't really feel a desire to have that tied to Adventism anymore. And she did, and she fought ruthlessly to keep it. I thought we had kind of overcome these things. We got to a point where I was like, okay, I think that it's fine that, you know, you have these strong ties. Well, I respect whatever you want to put on this relationship. And you respect that, like, I don't always want to go to church. I don't always want to do these things. I don't always get it. And about a week after I thought we had kind of reached that point, this spiritual person in her life had called her and said some hurtful things. Again, I can't imagine someone saying these things to me. So I 100% have sympathy. As much as I was trying to comfort her through that situation, she didn't make it out. She ended up breaking up with me because she felt that she was seeing signs everywhere that, you know, God was calling her to no longer be in a relationship with a woman. And that was hard. It was hard because, you know, one of her last words to me were, I hope you find God. Which is a crazy thing to say to somebody. And not that I was nice in that conversation. I really wasn't. I was mad at that point. But I think in general, you know, seeing her through those months, tried to fight this back and forth, and that side winning was really, really hard. And it was hard for me, obviously, because you're breaking up with somebody that you know, loved. But not only that, but I think went through a period where I was like, damn, I feel like I'm dirty because I had somebody I loved who felt like my whole world for a little bit, you know, essentially prove that to me. And I don't hold it against her because I know that it couldn't have been easy. And I know that she's probably struggling a lot more than I will ever struggle with this situation. And I hope that someday she'll find peace, but I also know that it's more likely for her to go on Instagram and become a conservative Christian influencer. That's hard to accept. And in my opinion, this was a bit of a religious psychosis situation. However, that's just my opinion. That's scary. And I know that people in her life were also very scared by this because it wasn't just me that it affected. It was a lot of people in her life. It's been very healing to have like relationships with the other people in her life that, you know, were also hurt by the situation and were also affected by what had happened. Because it's not easy. It's not easy to get close to somebody and, you know, see them go through struggles, but also have their struggles beat onto you. And I think it bled onto a lot of people in her life, not just me. And I think I'm trying to unlearn some of the things that, like, I felt from that. It's hard to think that you're on a campus where a lot of people think that you are sinning by just existing, and you find someone that, you know, is going through a similar experience, and you start going through it together. So finally it feels like you are kind of safe, or you conquered that, because no matter what somebody's saying to you, you still have this person who gets it and they understand, and you can go through it together. To have that person say the same things that the people who hate you say is really hard. And I know that's coming from a place of self-hatred. I'm not angry, and I don't think I could ever hold a grudge. And I do hope that she finds peace one day. I'm just very lucky to have it happen and have the people around me, because I had friends that had gone through similar situations and they were right by my side. I had other people who had never, you know, didn't really understand what it was like to be in a gay relationship and had never witnessed somebody go through a gay breakup, let alone one that ended like this. And my friends were so extremely supportive of me. I had people apologize to me that were from her life that I didn't really know that well. I know that, you know, I didn't get the short end of the stick, even though, you know, at the time maybe it felt like it a little bit, because I just have so much love and support. And, you know, her opinion of me, as much as it mattered for a really long time, doesn't anymore. And same with the church. You know, I've left officially, Like, my parents have ties, but they're not, like, ever gonna make me have those ties. I just want to say that if you're a queer person going through, either a situation like mine, a situation like hers, a situation just where you're feeling like lost in Christian spaces, you don't have to exist in that space. It's okay. Like, you can leave and you'll be fine. During these months of her kind of being unsure, I had gone to a church in my town that was supposed to be gay affirming, or just in general was accepting. I just looked it up online, whatever. I show up and it's like a really small environment of people who are mostly 50, 60 plus. It's like a church for seniors. And I started going because they were genuinely some of the sweetest people ever. Like, I would miss a week, whether it just, because it was early, and I just wouldn't wake up that Sunday. And I'd come back the next week and I'd just like be surrounded with love and hugs and all these things. And at the time, I don't even think they realized like what I was going through or why I was seeking them out, because I really just felt like I needed to restore my faith in humanity for a little bit. I needed to free myself from what she was feeling, and I wanted to kind of open myself up to like, actual real Christian love. And I wanted to see if that's a real thing, because, a lot of people are hateful, and it was great because it was like the first sermon was like talking about how we like have done so much to hurt the LGBTQ plus community, people of color, like all of these things. They were like calling out, and like what we can do to be the change. And that was beautiful to hear, because it was something that I had heard, maybe with West Coast Adventism, maybe on this side of the state, there's some churches that are very liberal and are very accepting, but in Michigan, it was not something common. So it made me tear up a little bit. Like, it was so beautiful to see that, like, there are Christians out there that actually it's fine for you to be gay. That was never on the table as a sin. Like, it's okay. And even though I wasn't necessarily going there for, strengthening my relationship with God or whatever, I just wanted to see people who were in those religious spaces accepting me for who I was. And I had a lot of conversations with the members there. They ended up like bringing me a graduation gift. They mailed me multiple cards like for holidays, and it was really sweet. And I was really happy to have found that like little community, especially of like older people. It was just amazing. When I decided to take a break to go to Disney, I'd come out to my advisor, and after this whole situation happened, I just realized like how important that break was for me, and how important it was for me to be able to like experience the world outside of Adventism and realize, wow, there's like so much out there, and there's so much, love from people who are from honestly a conservative state. I was going to Florida, and they heard my stories and were like, that's crazy. I'm sorry that happened to you. And I was like, you know what? You're right. That is crazy. And I am so grateful. And I don't even think, like, if I think about my relationship with my advisor, I tear up a little bit to this day, because she was so important to me. She did so much to help me. And I don't even think she realizes it. Clearly, I'm not over everything. Clearly, it still emotionally affects me. And while I like to think that, like, I'm past the situation's, first feelings, I still remember how I felt on that campus, and it still makes me really sad. And it makes me sad to think that other people are going through similar situations. So, if you're a queer person, find your bubble, find your people. You don't have to be with those who think a certain way. Don't stick around hate the sin, love the sinner narratives. It's not helpful. And in general, you could be an adult and end up in, a religious psychosis situation. So do what you can to set boundaries for yourself and, create an environment that you feel safe in, completely being yourself. Anyways, I'm very lucky to be in the place that I am, and I am really grateful to be starting a new chapter in a new city, in a very queer-friendly environment, in a non-Adventist environment, surrounded with other people who are like-minded or also queer and all these different things. And I just want to let everyone know it doesn't matter.
It's crazy because I'm gonna have such a bigger circle of people who think very differently. And like in the next coming months, I look back and I feel kind of bad because last year a alleged conversion therapy allegedly opened across the street. And I remember some students, like, trying to get together and be like, this is really bad, like, vulnerable students, blah, blah, blah. And I remember thinking to myself, like, there's not that many vulnerable students. Like, there's not that many people who are gonna fall for this. Like, nobody's gonna keep this place in business. Like, this is kind of silly. Like, I know this narrative is pushed. And obviously there's some people who, like, have to go through this and it's gonna be really hard for them. But I think, like, they're gonna go out of business. Like, I was kind of like, I don't even know
there's
what
not
they're
an audience
there's
for
not
that.
an audience for that. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, you know, it's 2025. Like, even here, like, there's not an audience for that. But it's crazy because now it's like I dated the audience.
Yeah, target audience.
I realized that, like, it was closer to home than I thought.
Yeah.
So I think it did also give me the like wow, you know, things are bad, things are tough, and things are harder than like I think I ever thought. Even going into it freshman year, going into it sophomore year, like
It's bad. It's bad. At Andrews, there is a very vulnerable population. Okay? Like we said. And I think it's hard sometimes if you're secure in yourself or if you're not a member of the community to kind of think it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? It's because if you're not in the queer community, maybe you aren't aware that there are so many queer people around you, and maybe you just aren't aware of the risk they're put at. But it's real. Okay? I personally know people, right, who are queer and almost all of them have struggled with suicidality. It's a real risk. And when someone's struggling, the idea of a ministry that claims to want to, you know, help you and heal you sounds pretty attractive, right? And when you're scared and you're vulnerable, you don't know who to turn to, I can see how a person could go to a place like that.
Yeah.
Especially if it's across the street from the university. It's clear their
They're targeting
audience.
us.
The target audience is exactly that population here. The target audience is people trying to figure out their sexuality. And if the things they hear are those narratives, which are pray the gay away, it's because you're spiritually broken, it's because XYZ, that's going to have really serious harm on people. And so, it's bad. It's bad. It's bad.
It's worse than I thought.
It's worse than you think.
I just hope going forward that people create more spaces.
Absolutely.
And don't keep perpetuating these like narratives because it's actually incredibly harmful to even the people you think are the strongest soldiers.
Yeah.
Or people who you think are okay.
It can get to anyone.
Yeah.
It can get to anyone. And even the people it doesn't get to are affected by it.
Yeah. Collateral damage.
Collateral damage. I think this experience for a lot of people in the community here on campus, kind of the story of your experience, has kind of like sent waves through. It's like, dang, like, this is real. Like, people are really going through this. You know, we have a friend on campus who recently published research on religiosity and Adventism and queer people, right? And it's looking at queer college students' experience in Adventist colleges and their experience with church and religion, how they relate to these things. And, I mean, the same stuff comes over and over again where the church is meant to be a community. Like Adventism, you go to church and they're like, come as you are, like, this is your community, this is where we blah, blah, right? But you don't feel safe in those spaces. You don't feel like you can come to those spaces. You feel like you have to go to other places to hear the message of Jesus' love, you know what I'm saying? Of Christian love. You don't feel like you experience it here. And unfortunately, a lot of other people feel that way. And a lot of people who want to be in that community feel strongly they have to change in order to receive that love. But when we're talking about religion and God's unconditional love, nothing will teach you so much about how church makes it quite conditional that when you listen to the experiences of queer people, okay? I heard the story of somebody who was talking about their queer experience. They were at Adventist, they had gone to an Adventist academy, right? Like us. And then came to Andrews. And they were summing up kind of their experience where they experienced suicidality, feeling suicidal during high school. And they came to the realization that the teachers, the authority figures in their high school and in their church community who had promised that they loved them so much would be more likely to attend their funeral if they killed themselves than if their wedding, if they married a person of the same sex. So, like, really think about that. Like, literally the church would be more celebrant of you dead than alive and happy.
Yeah.
And in the type of relationship that makes you happy.
Yeah. And I'm very grateful to the people, to the professors, to the people of authority here that were supportive of me. And I was able to, like, tell what happened, and they were like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like, that should never happen, and, like, agreed about the spaces. Yeah. So
don't underestimate the importance of allies.
And also, like,
you might save somebody's life.
You know, live your life, live your truth. Tell people what your experience is.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it shouldn't have to happen to anyone. Yeah,
and hearing other people's experiences, like, changes people's hearts and minds. So live your truth.
Yeah. And
if that,
good luck in Adventism.
And good luck in Adventism. Live your truth, and if you're in the church, be an ally. Because it literally could save somebody's life.